All right.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is Maintaining Frame number 156. Women are winning, men are losing, and men are to blame.
As always.
Yep. Welcome to the show, everybody. If you don't mind, please do us a favor and hit that like button, and just like help us out by doing that, because it will essentially gain favor with the algorithm, and other people might have a chance of coming across this content. So yes. What was that now?
I said other people might have a chance of coming across our stuff.
Yes.
Our things, the things that we think. So before we go to get into it, again, everybody, feedthebadger.com/just-the-tips. Just the tip, not tips. Just because presumably there aren't multiples. Feedthebadger.com/just-the-tip if you want to send those comments in. Very best way to send us a tip and a comment, because you avoid YouTube's comment thresher system and we get the full benefit, or at least minus the fees of whatever you send, which isn't minus Google's fees, which is 100 billion%. So anyway, feedthebadger.com/just-the-tip. And I think if we have time, we'll try to go over some more cancer to do with the alt-right and Tim Pool and stuff like that. So stay tuned for that. But first,
are you talking about the video that you sent me? So we're not doing that one first.
No. Oh, you want to do that one first?
Oh, no, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me. I just have it up. I wasn't sure because you asked me to go through it. So who suggested the Tim Pool video, by the way?
Richard.
It's a Xander Hall video. Okay.
Okay.
Xander Hall is a progressive bread tube guy that basically like makes response videos that are like, well, he's just your typical bread tuber. That's all. He basically like takes an hour to make one argument because that's what sophistry requires. So it just takes. This is why I don't actually really get bored of responding to feminists and leftists, because they always do the same thing. They basically say, oh, I'm going to make this argument. My goal is to land on so-and-so is racist, sexist, homophobic, whatever. But I can't make there's no clear way to do that because they aren't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, it's like drawing a long, long line in a giant spiral until you like of lingo and buzzwords and, mind reading and implication and projection. And then you finally land on, and yeah, therefore he's a bad person. You should not talk to him. And so in Xander Hall, that's what he does. He's like all these other guys. They basically all look the same to me at this point. And I'm fine with responding to it, but all I'll say is this. I don't know. My only question to Richard Bier is, what are we responding to? Because I know that this is nothing in this is men's rights oriented. There's nothing about it in there. Now you can probably suck the marrow out of the bones of that video and make an argument for men's rights, but it just seems like an exercise in that's just, kind of ridiculous. But if this is to essentially just sort of like, expose the way that progressives argue, or expand what we talk about, then I'm fine. Like I said, I'm fine with talking about it. I'm just saying, Allison, if you haven't seen the video, you might be disappointed because it won't be about men. So,
it's just about sophistry. But okay. What I've noticed watching all of these arguments is that, and this is one technique that they do, they will concede the point at the beginning. And I'm starting to get more and more of a sense of how this works. They basically say, yeah, you're completely right. Your position is completely accurate. However, I am going to create an emotional performance to indicate why we don't have to care and why you are actually wrong. It's not because you are actually wrong, but I'm going to mime you being wrong, and that will make you wrong. So it's like it's a performing of an emotion. Does that make sense? It's like, and I think this does actually reflect how politics have become feminine, and we are starting to see politicians simply selling an emotion. And maybe that was something they did forever.
I think ever since women were able to vote, I bet that was a thing. Like, oh, now we can just completely reorient the way that we. Because like
Mhm.
before, if you think about it, if you were a politician and you had to like get votes, you had to appeal to the things that concerned American vote in America. You had to concern American voters. And if the average American voter was a household, not necessarily a man, but a household with
Mhm.
children and a wife and a man and kids and land and all that. Well, then you had to make appeals to things that those people cared about. But when it became the case that women were able to vote, that made things dynamic completely different, because now it's like, oh wait, I can just appeal to what women want
Mm.
and then I'll get the vote. And then if over time you change the actual priorities of people, where before it was people cared about land, they cared about defense, they cared about their economy, they cared about their ability to procure resources, they cared about their ability to feed their family, they cared about what their children's education was going to be like or what environment they're going to be living, they cared about crime, these things that made sense to normal people. But then you slowly move that away by like offering the government do more stuff for you. Whereas before, if you were like a family with that, you had your land, you had your guns, whatever. Maybe you didn't worry about security because everybody, like the community, was pretty tight knit and everybody looked out for each other. And the men and boys, they essentially did most of what the government does today on their own. Like the community did all that. But then you
Mhm.
take that away and then you basically make women feel afraid and insecure. And then you tell them, oh, well, we can take care of all the stuff that men have done historically for you. Besides, why would you want men doing that? Aren't they oppressors? Don't you feel like you should be afraid of those men? Don't they have too much power? Maybe
Mm.
you have the power. Maybe you can be the one that takes the power from them, and we'll do your bidding. You just give us your votes and we'll
Mm.
take care of it. And so like I like over time, I mean, that is an emotional appeal. And I do think that's what the landscape has been probably for 100 years. Maybe it's
Um,
just gotten more extreme over time, but I think so.
yeah, well, here's the thing. During the first half of the 20th century, actually probably the first 3 quarters, women actually voted conservative more than men. So I think what ended up happening is it's not just a kind of manipulation of women. I think it ended up also being a manipulation of men. And specifically, I think that men wanted to have somebody who was an equal in the relationship, which is why it was majority men who were interested in women having the vote. And then it was majority women who weren't. So it was never really a fight of men against women. And again, women initially voted conservative more than men. Men were actually much more progressive. But what I think happened is they discovered that, well, first of all, single women are even more progressive than single men. And they started to aim towards breaking down the family in order to gain that extremely progressive female vote. And it's a female vote that has no responsibilities or no sense of duty towards community or family. And that's what they were after. So they sort of cracked the nut, destroyed the relationship between the sexes in order to create a gigantic voting block of single women who don't have to mature in certain ways, because they don't have to learn to live with another human being. They don't have to learn to take care of small and vulnerable creatures. They usually have cats, and cats are not particularly vulnerable. In fact, they're agents of utter chaos and tremendous power. But anyway, to get back to my point, I think this what we've seen in the last century is a progression of the destruction of almost like a mature feminine. And
Mm-hmm.
like the women who said, no, we don't need the vote. That's gonna actually destabilize society, and it's not gonna be a good thing. So I think it's a little more complicated than it's just feminine. I think, again, it's like this undifferentiated teenage feminine that we're dealing with. It's all emotions, all in the moment, all about, and also very much about excluding people by calling them names,
Yeah.
particularly behind their back. But that's what it seems to be. And I think that's where it relates to men's issues, is that the general thrust towards not just removing masculinity, men's masculinity in our society, but the expectation that women understand the consequences of the actions and, you know, causality. Just getting rid of that has also like had knock-on effects of creating a real marketplace for this kind of sophistry, like we see in the Canadian election. What did Carney sell? He sold this idea he was going to punch the big misogynist bully in the nose, even though anybody who looked at it rationally said, hey, there's nothing he can do in this circumstance, right? He has to negotiate. That Canada doesn't have leverage. We have to negotiate. We can't play a hardball. But he sold this emotion to these older women, mostly boomer women, because Gen X generally voted for Polyev. He sold this emotion that he was going to go punch the big misogynist bully in the nose. Meanwhile, what he's actually doing is conceding. And he, at the very moment he said, no, I'm going to go elbows up, I'm going to be like a hockey tough to Trump. At that very moment, he was actually repealing the reciprocal tariffs and, you know, essentially conceding. So he literally sold an emotion to people who should have known better, and they didn't, because they don't think in terms of systems. They don't think in terms of logical consequences. They just think in terms of the emotions in the moment. And that's not just feminine. It is infantile feminine. Okay. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to point that out. So I think that's how this relates, like the Tim Pool thing. That's how this relates to men's issues, is the general loss of masculinity and that sense that masculinity brings of adult consequence or an interest in consequences to your actions. And thus, you know, an understanding of systems and causality. Okay.
All right. Well, we're going to be starting with Asmongold then.
Yeah, I guess. Have we just exhausted the other one?
No, but I thought we were starting. So I didn't know what we were starting with. So I just had the Tim Pool thing up. But you said at the top of the show, if there's time, we'll look at the Tim Pool thing, which suggests to me that we're not doing the Tim Pool thing. We're only doing it if there's time. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So I'm backing up, and we're going to look at this. I guess we have the Asmongold response to Tomi Lahren's appearance on the Ingram angle with Laura Ingram.
We
and
don't
then
have
there's
I mean, was there anything interesting that Asmongold said to this?
I mean, isn't this like, but I mean, this is the title of the video. Well, okay, I watched it. And you know, I mean, Asmongold's takes are decent, and what it tells me is that what we have been talking about for so long, and I'm not saying that we're the pioneers, but I mean, like, a lot of people are doing this conversation and they all have their own way of approaching it, but it's certainly getting into, you know, the mainstream as far as the internet goes. And Asmongold is probably he is like, I think he's like the biggest Twitch streamer or the biggest streamer right now. And I think it's completely organic to boot, because for a long time, Hassan Piker was the biggest streamer. If you guys know who Hassan is.
Men's right activists are machines, dude.
That dude.
Yeah. But that was astroturfed. I mean, he's like the definition of nepotism. Shank's nephew, and Twitch propped him up. But Asmongold got there organically. And the truth is that Asmongold's not, he's politically just a normie. So that's even more encouraging, because that means, like, he's not a guy that, like, you know, does any like deep dives. He's not a pundit. He doesn't do debates. He's just a guy that just looks at the world and he sees what's happening and he shares his normie opinions. But it just so happens that they are, you know, like, I can tell that he's, like, on some level, maybe on the periphery, he's getting some of this kind of content, and he's starting to question the orthodoxy that we've been living under. And I think that's really encouraging. So
yeah, he's like the temperature of more on the normie end of things, even though I bet he would reject being called that. But just like a little bit more on the mainstream. He's the pulse of the every dude. Would that be a good way of putting it?
Yeah, well, he's definitely like the what do you call it? He's what the Zoomers, like the Zoomer dudes watch. That's what I would guess. He's like his audience is the Zoomer men. So
he's a
and
window
I don't
into the
I don't
Zoomer
well the
mind.
thing is I don't watch a lot. I don't watch a lot of Asmongold. So I don't really have time to watch streamers because I have to do streams myself, but I do catch his like the 1 minute shorts that clip out, that I see once in a while if the topic is interesting to me. And yeah, I based on what little exposure I have, he's basically the voice of the normie Zoomer.
A normie
So,
Zoomer. Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, that's good. Like, so that these ideas are filtering to them and
I
they're
think so.
understanding. Yeah, maybe
Well,
they'll come across our stuff and realize how deep
maybe.
the rabbit hole goes.
Yeah, if they want that. So, but
Yeah,
anyway,
if they want that.
his reaction to this interview is pretty good. And again, like we have to take this into context, okay? So this is a clip. It went viral because of the content, the emotional content of the clip with Tomi Lahren complaining about young men at Laura Ingraham on Fox News. The truth is, Fox News doesn't, like, in terms of their viewership, Fox News, CNN, ABC, NBC, MSNBC, CBC, whatever, they don't even come close to the kind of exposure that people like Asmongold get. The streamers in general get way more views than nobody watches TV except for like, boomers like over 70. So they're the ones that are seeing this stuff, and it's important to take that into account. So when Tomi Lahren or people on Fox News or whatever the website is, and they like, they I don't know, they defiantly and like righteously condemn like half the population of men for not stepping up or not whatever. It's kind of a pointless gesture. It's like, but like where the conversation really is happening, there's way more dissent. And these people really, they're just not really prepared. I mean, why would Laura Ingraham, the woman on the left there, she's making like millions of dollars a year to basically put out content that reaches like, like I said, the living rooms of retirees and people in airports. So it's not like this is getting a lot of exposure. Like unless you're at the, if you're at the medical clinic to get your, refill of diabetes medicine or whatever, or whatever it is. Like you're not reaching that many people. That's what I'm saying. But she gets paid really well, so she does it. But I don't think it's what I'm ultimately getting at is I don't like what these women have to say, but I don't think they're reaching that many people that at least not that matter.
Not the Zoomer men. So we have on the one hand these ladies from Fox and Tomi Lahren. Tomi Lahren is also a lady at Fox. So that anyway.
She used to be on The Blaze, and I don't think I think she like, I don't really know where she works now. I remember when she used to be at The Blaze, and then she had ended up leaving because she disagreed with Glenn Beck on abortion rights. She was a pro-choice woman. So and I guess he was like, well, you can't work here or something. So I know that they had a disagreement. But anyway.
Okay. But I'm hitting something back here. But my point is, so we have the airport doctor's waiting room geriatric opinion on the one hand, and then we have the Zoomer man opinion, Asmongold. That's what I'm getting at. So we got this sort of extremes here that we're going to take a look at.
Yes.
And, yes. Okay. So
all right. So go ahead.
Well, do you want to just do the clip that Tomi Lahren did, or shall we go into Asmongold?
We can. Well, this is Asmongold responding to Tomi Lahren. So the other video is not Tomi Lahren. It's like some different guys responding. The other clip you sent me, that's like a panel discussion. Also, again, it's Fox News. I think they're reaching the same old people audience. But let's listen to this.
Rise at stay-at-home sons. So you got people complaining about the NEET uprising. That's what it is. They get mad about it.
It's a major problem. And, you know, Speaker Johnson has been talking about those maybe deadbeat folks that are on Medicaid, and maybe some of those folks are the stay-at-home sons. We don't know. But I'll tell you this, leave it to Gen Z to rebrand laziness and social awkwardness as something cutesy, like a stay-at-home son. They did much the same thing with quiet quitting, where you can go to work and do less. And if you call it quiet quitting, it's somehow better.
That's right.
All right. So did you want to say anything about this before I explain why Tomi Lahren is completely a retard?
The thing that came to mind, and I know that I'm a squirrel, so I don't know how useful this is the fact that when women are stay-at-homes, and I'm not saying that people shouldn't create whatever situation that they feel is best. They do like half the work of men, half of the man who's supporting them. And they also do half the work of everybody else in society. So any other arrangement of men working, woman working, men and woman working, every other arrangement sees women doing twice as much work as being a stay-at-home. So it's like, yeah, but you're getting a pretty good, I mean, women are getting in general a pretty good deal. And that's like one of the major minority like family situations. When men stay at home, they do even less work, but we don't know because they don't tell us if that's because they're retirees, because they have injuries, because they're unemployed and they're actually looking for work. You know, so it's not a comparable situation, because when women stay at home, they usually it's a result of a choice, their choice, or a mutual choice, often just their choice. So it's like you guys are getting a good deal there, and yet nobody ever mentions it. It's a really good deal. And the fact that there's some, and I just noticed that these women just really have a problem with the idea that men might get the same kind of deal somewhere ever, you know? And that's I don't know, it feels a little hypocritical. But then again, maybe Tomi Lahren thinks that all women should be career women. And
well, I'll say this. It's funny when like that Tomi Lahren cares about things like Medicaid and like welfare when she thinks men are taking advantage of it, even though women have been taking advantage of it for a long time. And I doubt
that's what
that.
I'm getting
I think
at.
that I think that men generally have a harder time getting government funded support. Now, of course, I'm against that, like in general, but I understand that some people have certain you know, they have circumstances outside their control, they're disabled or whatever. And I think that if there's going to be government assistance that exists, it should go towards the people who need it most, and also the people who have that they're somewhat deserving, like veterans or something like that. That are, you know, again, you go to the Middle East to fight in some bullshit war for a country you've never seen before, and you get a limb blown off, then we should at least take care of you when you come back. But she doesn't seem to be focused on that. She seems to, you know, her issue is that there are men who are struggling to find work. And this is the thing that I like that Asmongold gets into, which is maybe the reason why men are not working is because they can't find work. And maybe the reason why they can't find work is because we are learning that there have been all of these initiatives to essentially put women first in education, give them as many advantages as possible in their searching for their careers, giving them scholarships, giving them grants, giving them every possible advantage. And then when women go to college, like, and they get all of this assistance. And by the way, this is all, I'm putting yourself in the mind of a college age girl who's going to college and knows she gets all of this help. And she's not really considering that the men who are her peers are not getting the same assistance. And they have to work extra hard to make it. But that's not in your mind as a woman, because you're looking at just your situation, which is fair. And then you get out, you're in college, and you're kind of like, you know, maybe you even know what you want to do. Like a lot of people who go to college don't know why they're going to college, but maybe even in your case, you know what you want to do. And you go to college, you get your degree, and you come out and you find a job, and now you're looking for a man. And none of the men are living up because your standards are that much higher, right? So, and of course, Tomi Lahren falls on, well, the men should just, because this is what I'm saying. Like Tomi Lahren is not conservative. She's a feminist. She is going to say that men have there is no excuse as to why men might be struggling because they're men, right? So like there's like this suggestion that they just have power, but we should probably hear that out first before I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I did watch this video, so.
I got to tell you, this is also a big problem when it comes to, I think, declining birth rates, people not getting married and having children. You know, that's a big problem. They blame it on women. Well, look at what young women have to choose from. The pickings are slim. Yes, we might have a feminism problem in America, but it's the feminization of men. There are a lot of young women out there that want to get married. They want to have kids. They want to have stable families. But there are a lot of young men out there who want
Well, they don't have a stable job.
in mama's basement in order to
exactly. Like, and now we have AI. Like, and the thing about AI is, for the most part, the people who are employed are not really feeling the effects. It's everybody who's trying to enter the workplace because AI has just cut off the bottom rungs of the career ladder. Like, Lauren, cut men a break. We decided, and she gives she does the sophist things. She recognizes reality. We have a feminism problem. Yes, you do. Literally, you wanted to make it so that men were hamstringed so women could get ahead of them. And now they're ahead of them. And then the women are upset that there are no men who are better than them. At least not enough to go around. I guess there's enough if everyone wants to share like one man, like 10 women want to share one man. But it's like, this is what we chose to do. This is what's so frustrating. It's like, as a society, we came together and said, hey, why don't we screw up our sons so that our daughters can have a greater advantage? And that's going to level the playing field because patriarchy somehow. And I actually think it's just because people like to benefit women, period. It's just a bias that we have. But regardless, we all decided to do this. We decided to openly do this. We even know now that DEI initiatives preferentially benefit white women of all people. And the justification for that is that white women never benefited from being the wives and daughters and mothers and sisters of wealthy white men in the past. No, they didn't get any benefit from that. No, they were just as oppressed as everyone else. And that's the excuse, right? When that's why white women have been the biggest beneficiaries of DEI, because they were obviously, other groups were oppressed, but they were not oppressed because they were women. And we really care more about oppression when it happens to women, right? That's how our attitude is. So they ended up being the biggest beneficiaries of that. And now on the other side, men are struggling because that was what we wanted to do. Like, this is what's so insane. That is the thing that we wanted to do. We wanted to hamstring men and boys in terms of education, in terms of career opportunities, in terms of recognition. And we wanted to do that in order to elevate girls under the presumption there was some kind of bias against them, which was never proven, by the way. And now we've done it. Bravo. Let's step back and celebrate. No, we can't do that. Because now we have to point the finger at the very group of people we disenfranchised to do this and say, why aren't you stepping up? But here's the question. If men had stepped up, if while we rolled out all of this kneecapping, men had created bionic legs, what would we have said? We would have said that men's bionic legs, allowing them to continue to run faster than women, is what? Oppression of women. Therefore, we have to kneecap the bionic legs. And we would have done this for everything that men did to overcome the obstacles they put in their way. We would have called it bias against women and attempted to destroy it. We are in a self-destructive spiral to hell. And the only way to stop it is to stop blaming men, because this is how it started. We blame men for having privilege, which excused all of the bias against them in law, policy, employment opportunities, in terms of education. And now we're blaming them for the results of our own campaign against them. Like, it's so infuriating. Okay.
It's wild that that's okay. It's wild that Tomi Lahren can acknowledge that they have a feminism problem and then says we have a feminine male problem, and it's like a feminization of man problem. And somehow those two things can't possibly be related. Like, Yes,
sophistry.
the problem that you are talking about with men is directly related to the feminism. And now you're taking like a generation of men who have been shit on and disenfranchised and disadvantaged systemically from the education system to their job opportunities and everything, and you're complaining that they are struggling, that they're not working hard enough. It's insane.
It's
And
insane.
I don't know if she doesn't see the correlation because she's a moron, or if she does, but just doesn't think like that it's irrelevant because men should just be extra powerful. Just level up, guys. Just like, get into the fucking, gravitational chamber and do push-ups until you can overcome all of that. Just
And
do
then
that.
if
Just
they
level up.
do, what happens? We call that oppression.
They
and
call
we
it
smash
oppression.
the
Yeah.
gravity chamber.
Yeah.
So
Crank
they
up the
can't.
gravity another 100 times. All
Yeah,
right.
until
Anyway,
men can't
let's
compete.
yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
that's
and then complain that they're not competing.
and then complain that they're not competing effectively. We'll just
Yep.
put up the gravity until men can't compete, and then complain they're not competing effectively. But the thing is
No,
that
and the weird thing is that men shouldn't be competing with women anyways. But then
yes,
Tomi Lahren still frames it in that way where it's like
well,
men are not like
feminists.
keeping up with women. It's like, but that's not the issue. Is not that men are unable to keep up. It's that women have, because we have essentially we've kind of constructed a delusion of reality for women that is so safe and allows them so much prosperity and so much advantage. They can work in a white collar job inside of a cushy little cubicle in an office somewhere, working for some faceless CEO to make like, enough money to afford a condo, maybe for a while. And all of that is like, hinging on men keeping everything running, but they can't see that. They're like in Plato's cave. They don't, or whatever. It's like a construct around them that keeps it going. And meanwhile, AI is like right around the corner, going to take most of their jobs, which we've seen. And where the women are still, they don't even want to know that. They just look at their phone and they're like, man, none of these men are good enough for me. Like that. And that's what's happening. Like I've seen a bunch of TikTok videos of women talking about how generally like openly saying how generally unattractive men of their age range are and how much more attractive women are, and how they're fine with being alone. Like that, like women are doing this. Okay. Now, obviously one day they're probably gonna be like, why did I do that? But right now, in the moment, everything seems fine. It's like, wow, none of these men are really they're just not measuring up. I don't know what's going on here. And it's, well, anyway, I'm getting on a bit of a tangent, but it's completely divorced from reality. Like, so it's not just what was happening to men. It's the way in which we have deluded women into seeing a reality that just doesn't exist, and it's not sustainable. Like their fantasy is going to collapse.
Yeah, what we need is men who just tell it like it is to women. No frippery, no bullshit. Just tell it like it is. And this is just not happening. It's just like you're 300 pounds, you want a partner, lose 150. Just tell it like it is, right? We don't have that. Like, or we don't have enough of that. We don't have enough men who have the gumption or the spine to tell it like it is to women. We got too many men who are going to give them a snow job.
Yeah.
And just pretend the world is something other than what it is. And here's the thing, men who are like that, men who do not tell women like it is, are not safe. That's the bottom line. They're after something, right? Not always. I mean, some guys are just charming. Brian is very charming, but some guys that, they use this creation of a feeling in a moment in order to get something out of the woman that they're doing it to. And that's very common. So, the safest men are the guys who tell it like it is, period. Who are honest.
All right, let's listen to some more.
Cash. And there
What?
to have stable families, but there are a lot of young men out there who want to live in mama's basement and order DoorDash, and therein lies a big part of the problem.
No, that's not it. No way. So ignorant. Gen Z men get henpicked for 12 years by the most obnoxious and dumbest generation of women in human history, get dumped in the labor market alongside robots and Somalians, and now some die job TV bitch is calling them lazy, get fucked. He's completely fucking right, man. He's absolutely right. She's hating me. Yes, the thing is that a lot of guys nowadays have a ton of disadvantages. And also, I think that guys can't get a good job. Like, many guys are not able to get a good job and support themselves. And so why would they want to find how could they find a girlfriend to get married if they can't even fucking get a job? That's the thing. Gen Z has to work 10 times harder to get 10 times less. Yeah, exactly. And, yeah, I don't understand.
Oh, and by the way, the quiet quitting thing, we covered that on the show, quiet quitting as a trend. Remember, it was a Manifestel video. It was women that were quiet quitting. It wasn't men. Men can't afford to quiet quit. That's the thing. Like, this is actually evidenced by Tomi Lahren's statement. Okay, so let's say you're a guy in your 20s, and then there's a girl in her 20s, and the both of them are struggling to find a job, and therefore they can't move out of the house. And they're both stuck at home. Which one is the one that we see as a loser? The man, not a woman.
Of course.
Like, I remember I had a friend I used to work for. I told the story before, but I'll try and keep it brief. When I worked at the art supply store, which was like in the 2008 period, my boss was married and he and his wife lived in an apartment in the north side of Chicago. Pretty expensive to live there, but he was making decent enough money to do that. And they didn't have any kids. They both worked. And they both lived in this place. And then it turned out she cheated on him and they got a divorce. And then it was so sudden. He did not see it coming. And, she cheated on him and they got a divorce and they both had to move in with their respective parents because they couldn't afford to live on their own in the city. So he moved back to Michigan. She moved back to Michigan as well, I think. And they were both living at home with their parents and they were both in their 40s. Okay. Just temporarily. And I remember my boss was so ashamed. I mean, he was suicidal because he had to live at home with his parents. And I was like, well, how's your ex-wife doing? And she's like, oh, she's fine. Because nobody has, they all felt sympathy for her because she had to, it was like, oh, you poor girl. It was we're going to help you out. She was on her feet and she was moving in with another guy in no time. The dynamic is such that if a man is, for whatever reason, ends up having to live with his parents, it's not the same as when a woman has to live with hers. And I'm not saying it has to be the same, but we should at least understand that these are completely different dynamics. And it's easy for Tomi Lahren to say because any girl, and it doesn't I think he calls her pretty. I think she's mid at best, but any woman can just find a man and move in with him. All they have to do is essentially lower their standard enough and they can find a place to live. There's a reason why the overwhelming majority of the homeless are men. And I'm not saying that homeless women don't exist, but we tend to prioritize taking care of them. They'll find shelter first. They'll be given shelter first. People will look out for them more. So the idea that just the idea that a woman who's at home with her parents is a loser is just something we just don't have in this society. It just doesn't exist. But for men, it's as soon as they turn 18, it's why are you still with your parents, right? So that's another thing that I just want to put out there when Tomi Lahren talks about guys in their basement ordering DoorDash.
I mean, there's in the during the Great Depression, families would, and I found this out by going to a developmental museum in one of the cities close to my town, and I read a letter, and the family had actually, and it was considered just unremarkable. They'd basically turned out their 14-year-old boy because they couldn't feed everyone. So they basically said, you got to go. You got to make your way in the world. You're 14 now. Go find a job. Go find some place that'll feed you because we can't. And they kept their daughters. They were on a farm. And they families would do this. If they encountered hardship, their sons would be forced to leave early, basically, leave young, and go and try to make their way in the world. and they would keep their daughters. And this is you see this all around the world. Most of the street kids around the world are boys who've been left behind by their families because they couldn't feed all of their children. So they chose their daughters and said, you got to make your way in the world now, son. And why would you expect that a couple generations after that, we wouldn't have the same attitudes towards boys? Now we're rich enough that families can afford to keep their sons, but there's still that level of shame because in order to be able to kick out your 14-year-old boy to probably starve in a ditch somewhere, you really have to be invested in his identity as a provider. And you have to believe that he owes the world his provision, that he owes the world getting a job and paying for himself. Because otherwise, how do you handle the guilt? I mean, as a parent in 1930, I don't know, 5, how do you handle the guilt that you kicked Timmy out on his ear? Maybe in a couple weeks you'll go past his corpse rotting in a ditch. How do you handle the guilt? You handle it by saying, well, Timmy's worth is his ability to provide for himself and others. And if he can't manage that, he doesn't have any. And we still have that attitude, under the surface. It's sort of hidden by the fact that we're very, very, very wealthy. Even when we think we're poor, we're actually doing quite well in terms of our material goods, and families can now have the son in the basement instead of kicking him into a ditch. They can have him there. But of course, the shaming is still there. You got him in your basement, but boy, you really hate the fucker on some level.
Yep,
and and that's where Tomi Lahren is coming from too.
Yeah, exactly. She measures a man's worth by. That's why she says, "Oh, I know we have a problem with failing birth rates, but look, the pickings are slim." She's basically saying, hypergamous women is normal, and men should just try to measure up to whatever their hypergamy is, which is constantly changing thanks to girl math. But anyway, let's listen to more of this.
Oh, the man, the legend. Actually, there's a comment. The man, the legend. Tell him to join the military. Yeah, a lot of homeless boys did that in the 30s, and the military actually was pretty disreputable. For a while. It was something that was almost shameful to be part of until after World War II, and we sort of I don't want to say glorified, but we gave them the recognition that they deserved for the service that they do. And but yeah, they would join the military.
That lasted until about Vietnam, and then we hated them again.
Yeah.
But yes.
But my point is that the only way you can let go or deal with the guilt of treating your sons as expendable is to regard their worth as entirely folded into their ability to provide, and while families today have enough sentiment to, I think, take care of their sons, I think they still have a real contempt for them, even though we've all collectively decided that we just wanted to kneecap our sons in order to let our daughters flourish. So, and now we can't stand looking at the waste that we've created in a generation of men.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to blame them for it so that we can deal with the guilt of doing it to them. That's what I'm getting at. You blame your sons for not becoming providers, so you don't have to deal with the guilt of what you did to a generation of boys in order to elevate girls above them. Okay.
All right, let's move on.
Mm-hmm.
Rural areas struggle the most? Yeah, I think so. And also quiet quitting and all that stuff. The fact is that the reason why a lot of guys don't feel like they want to put in work to be part of the workforce is because the workforce doesn't work for them. The country doesn't work for them. Like if you're a guy and you're seeing all these privileges and opportunities being given to immigrants and to women and to people because they're like gay or something like that, and you have to sit there and look at all that, well, then why the fuck would you want to contribute to a society that does everything that they can to support everybody except you? That's the real reason why.
Yeah.
100%. Osmond. And not just that. And I got into it on Twitter. Did you? Okay, I'm just going to go for it.
Go ahead.
I got into it on Twitter with this. Okay? I was arguing with an individual because I said, if society, if men's participation in society doesn't give them a reasonable chance to become desirable to the opposite sex, why would they do it? And I'm not saying that they get like a state, I don't know, assigned wife. I'm saying that their participation in the society makes them more attractive to the opposite sex. And that's not the case anymore. Now it's just a baseline, you know, and I got this back. Oh, you feel entitled to women's bodies. And I said, well, do you think you're entitled to men's work? Like how if you're not entitled to men's work, you got to consider their half of what they get out of working for society. And they're like, oh, they get money. But these are the same people who'd say if a person doesn't get a living wage, which is irrelevant to the market forces that set the actual wage, then that's not fair. That's exploitation by the corporations, right? But if men don't get what they ultimately want from working, that's not exploitation. Like that's not an expectation. And then what they say is, well, men have to work because they got to survive. I'm like, well, do you also believe that survival threats of losing your life are a good reason to continue to compel them to work? But it's even bigger than that, right? Because men don't just work in our society in order to continue to survive. They don't just work for effectively nothing, just their survival, right? That's basically slave situation. They work for a society that's actively hamstringing their desirability of the opposite sex. So we're not even talking about a society that's neutral. It's just like, wow, your contribution to this society won't make you more attractive to women, but it won't make you less attractive to women because we're not actively pursuing destroying your value proposition for women. They are actually working for a society that is destroying their value proposition for women. We have a society with a gigantic ideological, what do we call it? Industry. Yeah, it's basically an industry, like a billion, trillion, not trillion, probably a billion, multiple $billion industry, feminism, that specifically churns out articles to tell women how undesirable men are. So men are not just working to build a society that they at least benefit from in terms of their survival, but don't actually make them, by participating in it, doesn't actually make them more attractive. They are actually keeping alive a society that's invested in making them less attractive. Like this is just absurd. And I know me saying that is going to maybe be demotivating. But on the other hand, if you're a young man and you're thinking, what the hell am I doing? You've got a point. And Tomi Lahren is up her own ass. You have a serious point. You are working in a system that will hamstring your participation in that system so that you can't actually climb the ladder as well, or even get a job as well, because they prefer women. And simultaneous to that, that society will say that you just showing up, just showing up to the table and being, hey, I'm a man. I could be your companion. I can make your life a little bit easier. We could just enjoy our lives, enjoy our hobbies, have a safe place in the storm from the chaos. Our society is torpedoing that as well. So it's torpedoing men's efforts to become the men that women find desirable. And it's also torpedoing men's efforts to say, hey, a relationship with me would be good. You know, you might benefit from it. We have companionship. You'd have a port in the storm. You'd have some emotional security. And then our society's like, nope, you can't say that either. Not only can you not offer a job, you can't offer yourself because yourself is shit. You just cause her emotional labor and more work, and you just want her to be your fuck bang maid and your mommy and constantly grinding at any value proposition that any man just gives to a relationship by showing up, right? Like this is our freaking. So yes, if you're a young man looking at this and saying, what the ever living fuck, you are 100% right. You are recognizing something, and it may be depressing, but the first step to unfucking the fuck ball is to recognize it is a ball of fuck.
Yeah.
Right.
Isn't it amazing too that we are celebrating essentially what is women's materialism over men's desire for legacy. What I mean is, I think that when it comes to like the reasons why we would work, okay, um, there are multiple, but there is a hierarchy. So like, let's go with the most unrealistic, but the most optimized, or maybe like the most the highest calling, which is essentially, I want to build out the garden, you know, in the world. I want to do something great for its own sake and help people. That's something that most people don't work for. So I'm not saying, like, I'm not making this into something prescriptive. I'm simply describing what would be the highest reason to do work in the world. That would be like, I want to make the world better, right? And I don't care about the money or whatever. Then like below that, which is where I think most men are at, is, well, I want a solid enough job that I'm able to support a family because I want to find someone, marry them, and have children. And that's like the next one down from that. And then you have women's reason. Now, why am I putting that one below? Because women don't actually have to make money to find a man and start a family. So women who are career oriented, like Tomi Lahren, they're doing that for who? Like what? Like men don't care how much money women make. They don't care about like how like, successful their business is. They probably should, but they don't. Like in general, men's don't think about what women are like. A woman could just be a waitress, you know, in a cocktail bar, and they'll probably get a date, and you know, and he'll probably try to take her out of that monotony and bring her into like a life of somewhat, you know, security or whatever. So it goes back to like a long running joke a lot of comedians say, is that women want nice things, men want a woman. So men acquire nice things to attract a woman. Women don't go into careers because they want to start families. They go into careers because they want the money. They want the financial security. They want the comforts. Like what Tomi Lahren's married now, but when she wasn't married, she was working and doing what? She was going on trips. She was buying fancy clothes. She was getting a nice place to live. But it's all material. I'm not saying it's bad, but it is like you're buying stuff in the world that is fleeting, and it just makes you happy in the moment. But when men do that, some of them may be, you know, more materialistic, like, you know, Andrew Tate or whatever. But most men can't do that. Most men are just trying to like get by, find out, you know, maybe get a home if they're able to, and like get something that shows, hey, you know, I'm able to support a family, and they're hoping to attract a woman, then get that. But for whatever reason, even though I would argue that wanting to acquire resources so you can support a family is a higher calling than just getting resources for yourself, we celebrate the latter more than and we kind of shame the former, because we're not supporting men getting that, like getting to that goal. In fact, we're discouraging that, but we are supporting women. So women's financial ambitions, they have a cap in terms of like where it goes, because men don't care about money, but women do care about men's money. So the more money women make, the more money they expect a man that enters their life to make. It's got to be even more, right? So, you know, guys, that one thing that I often see when I see like, you know, like debates about money and the economy, and feminists too, like they make these apex fallacy arguments, right? Oh, there's so many like CEOs that are men, so many powerful and rich people that are men, but they're not looking at like the men that are basically doing the back-breaking work that keeps everything else running, that are like doing really humble positions like janitors and garbage men and sanitation workers and construction workers, and the guys who build the roads, the guys that maintain the power grid, the guys that, you know, keep all the plumbing running, all of that. And those jobs don't pay bad, but the thing is, they're low status jobs, and modern women have been conditioned to see those as beneath them, while they work in jobs that are literally dependent on those other jobs in order for them to be sustained, like working in office buildings and like being paralegals and working in cubicles and shit. And because women look down on that, or at least they're told that they should, because they should be chasing like the Don Drapers of the world, they end up being dissatisfied. And so like it's kind of a mess. And the part of it is that we have the priorities completely reversed. Like what we should be doing is supporting men for whatever they do. First of all, we should be celebrating the people who do the hard work of keeping everything running so that I can be on the internet talking to you guys right now, you know?
Mhm.
And I think that women have to recognize that as well. But
Okay.
I don't know. I just think it's wild that we have inverted the priorities in terms of what we
Yes,
celebrate.
like
So,
you're right. And we're inverting the priorities. We started by talking about this whole thing with Tim Pool and the sophistry of basically conceding the point and then doing like a little song and dance to create the emotion, like we don't have to care about the point, or the point is wrong. I'm going to do a emotional performance. So we see that in politics. Politics has become more and more about emotional performance. And you're right. We celebrate this kind of emotion in the moment for women, this being able to grab what you want in the moment as like some kind of empowerment. And then we sort of minimize this idea of legacy and what you see more with men wanting to build something greater, you know. And before, like we'd try to find a sort of a common ground. So women would get, you know, what they wanted in the moment, and men would get the legacy that they're after. But we're not doing that anymore. We're going full hog to just eradicate whatever men want from this system. And okay, so DJ Lajibo says men should stop being weak and bitching. If you're competent, you'll get a job. Trust me. If you're incompetent, be competent. Now, that's not really, first of all, I'm not a man. I know you might not have noticed, but also that's not what this is about. This is about honesty, right? This is about being honest about the world. This world is not being honest. It's not being honest about men. It's not being honest about women. It's not being honest about the past. And because of that, it's creating unfair obstacles to men's achievement because we just want to lie to ourselves. So why is it that the lie, like maintaining the lie, why is it for you, DJ Lajibo, why is maintaining the lie so critical? Why do men, in your estimation, have to set aside their own interests to maintain the lie? Why is the lie so sacred? Why can't we say this is a lie? This is wrong. This isn't reality, right? This isn't the pressures that women put on men. Let's recognize those pressures. And let's recognize that for the last century, we've destroyed men's ability to live up to women's expectations. And we haven't just done it with female-only scholarships and employment opportunities. We've done it by destroying men's networks, right? The good old boy. Men helping other men to build this kind of legacy in the business world. We've destroyed all that. And yet, maybe that was actually critical to a lot of things, because what I've noticed lately is that the business world is no longer working very well. So maybe the fact that men create these kind of communal groups around their businesses, around their career opportunities, maybe the fact that men help each other. So for example, men in academia will share research with each other. Women don't do that. Men share research with each other, right? They will help each other out. They'll mentor each other in a way that women don't do to other women. So maybe letting that be and letting men pursue those things was absolutely critical to our economy. And we decided to screw that for a vision that actually is complete fiction. So here we go. DG Labo, why can't women stop bitching? Like, why is it always on men to stop bitching? Maybe it's time for men to bitch and stop being silenced. Jesus says, what? Men help each other? You mean the collective? That sounds like socialism. Not if it's voluntary. Like, all right.
all
Okay.
right, I'm going to play more of the video.
Sure.
It's such a bad take. No, it doesn't. No, I'm telling you, you can tell me that guys are selfish for thinking this. You can say anything that you want about that. But what I'm saying here is the way that a lot of people feel, whether you like it or not. And that's the big difference I think a lot of people don't understand, is that, yes, sure, you might not want this to be the case, but it in fact is the case. This is massively the fucking case. This is lack of incentive. Yes, a lot of guys nowadays, Gen Z rebrand stay-at-home sons, just like they did with quiet quitting. Yep, a lot of people are unhappy. Let me see if I can find this. How old is she? She's 32. She does not have children. Yeah, obviously she doesn't have kids either. Two women with a combined age of 93 and no biological children between them sure have a lot to say about the state of young men.
Wait. Tomi Lahren is 32?
Yeah.
There's no way. We were talking about her 10 years ago.
Yeah, she was 22. Yeah, she was young.
Okay. All right.
Well, I think it was like a little bit less than 10 years ago, but that's about right. She was like in her 20s when she got popular. So, yeah. And that's again, Laura Ingraham and Tomi Lahren don't have kids. Like Tomi Lahren's, I think she's married or she's engaged or something. And it happens to be that her man is like some kind of like former retired athlete. So, you know, probably doing pretty fucking well financially. And so she's in a position where she can criticize working class people that are struggling. And the issue is that it's not that men are not getting off their butts and working, but it is, number one, it's hard to find work. Number two, you know, women kind of crap the economy for like 5 years with their votes. And the worst part is that the incentive is at the very least survival. But beyond that, I think that what motivates men to actually be ambitious in their pursuit is to attract a woman, is to build a family. Like that's the point, because the truth is that a man could live, you know, a life without women for almost no money. Like he could just build his own thing, or, you know, work like a minimum wage job, get a little studio and just like live his days out that way. And of course they would call that quiet quitting too, because he's not trying to like find a woman. But if women are not going to be a part of that solution, then I can't blame men for not wanting to bother with that, and just like, well, I'm just gonna live my life on my own. Because the thing is that if a guy said, well, I have a job, but it's only, you know, 40K, which is pretty fucking good, I might say. But if he told a woman I make 40K, she would say, well, that's not good enough for me. Because if you look at what women's expectations are, they're completely they're completely like irrational. And I think that's based on, again, they live in a world where they don't really know what things cost because they've never had to worry about it. Because like, you know, like even if they make decent money, they're just like going on trips and they're like, you know, maxing out their credit cards, and like they're, you know, like they're just living their life, their best life with their girlfriends. And a lot of times they're not
consumer debt.
Yeah, with lots and lots of debt.
Okay.
And you know, so anyway, go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say to that, to take off on your point, if women want men to earn twice as much as they do, and statistically it seems like they do, in order to pair up with them, we're going to need another Earth in order to manufacture the resources for that much material goods. Because, you know, money, the reason why you have money is to buy stuff, right? So if men suddenly tomorrow gain twice the ability to buy stuff, we're going to need more stuff. So if these women want that, fine. But don't talk to me about climate change or environmental degradation, because every zero you put on the income of the man that you desire is another bunch of dead wildlife, more pollution, more pre-trash. So the best way, you want to do net zero, ladies? Start chopping zeros off your expectation of your partner's income. Then we'll talk. That's a real net zero move, right? You know, if you're a woman, you think I want a man with 6 figures. No, decide that you're going to go for a man with 5 figures. and you will have significantly reduced your carbon footprint, your potential carbon footprint. There you go. That's the way you fight climate change and environmental degradation. Right at home. Control your expectations. Okay. I just wanted to point that out because it's like,
no, it's fine.
Something that people don't think about is that when women have these huge expectations of men's income, what they're asking for is more resources, and where do the resources come from? An already strained environment. Stop it, ladies. Stop shitting on the earth, on Mother Earth. Okay.
All right, I'm playing the video.
And by the way, this guy right here,
the gentleman in the glasses that hates women, I want to know if he ever had a date. Or if he's ever been with anybody.
I don't hate women. Now, I'm sure you have multiple blouses and multiple pairs of pants at home.
What, you know who this is? You know who this is?
I remember. They always have one of these guys every freaking generation. Like every
Dick Masterson. This is Dick Masterson.
Dick Masterson was the last one. And then the one before him was, I think he was also called Tucker, but he's not Tucker from Fox. He was another Tucker. I've been watching this for decades, and every few years there's a new hotness in like the misogynist that they bring up and they trot around. It's like I don't know, I swear to God, the mainstream media has their little stable of, then they groom these guys to have similar looks, and then they like, yeah, you're gonna take the stage and you're going to be the official misogynist for the era for the next 5 years. And we're going to trot you around and you're going to represent men and you're going to basically be a fucking clown. But maybe Dick had something interesting to say.
This is this is a classic clip, but let's listen.
But you chose these because they were your favorite. They were better.
So let me go. He's saying that you have a lot of blouses and pants at home, but you chose these because they're your favorite. Just setting the context.
Better than the others. That doesn't mean you hate the ones you didn't wear. I don't hate women. Men
What does it have to do with having a date?
Men are better than women. Yes.
Answer my question. Take your stupid glasses off.
I'm sure Dr. Phil can back me up on this.
Show us how you look.
Women line up to date guys like me, and you've had them all on your show.
She looks like a throwback.
I don't see any women lined up to you, and I would definitely be at the end of that line.
Well, if you hit the treadmill a little more, you'd be at the front.
Okay, all right. I'll give it to him.
Look at her, stun locked. Look, isn't it fun? And this is an old clip. This is completely like a separate thing. But isn't it weird that she said I'd be at the end of that line? It's like, so you'd be in the line then?
Mm.
You'd be in the line. That's a self-report, dude. Completely stun locked. And also, again, like, look, I'm sorry. Don't judge a book by its cover and all of that. But lady, this is what these daytime talk shows.
Shade.
That's what they do on these. They just get, they bring on this guy. He's putting on a show. He's, coming across. I guess he's putting out like the chauvinist vibes. But I think he was just, I don't even know what the context of the show is, but I doubt that he was deserving of this kind of hostility. But this is the thing. When a man says, I have standards, women they just get their panties in a twist. Like, men are just not allowed to have standards. And this woman, who, I'm sorry, not exactly a knockout, she like, I'm going to dunk on him. I'm going to put him in his place. And she gets up to do that. And then she got a little bit humbled, which is how it should be. But even then, though, everyone stands with her. So this still, let me play the rest of the clip. I'll go back a teeny bit so you guys can see it.
Or you'd be at the front. What was that?
I didn't hear you because I'm sure it was something stupid, and I'm glad I didn't hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, it was dumb. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't either. Yes.
Can't they pair these guys with a woman who can actually hold her own? Like, that would be fucking amusing. That'd be like a classic 50s screwball comedy. But no, they just, okay, what I mean by that, they just trot these guys. They always have one who plays this role. And yeah, he gets some zingers in. He gets to show women for what they are, but then nothing really changes.
Well, that's the thing about these online debates and these like talk show things. It just comes down to, what's the next soundbite? What's the next, clip that I'm going to take that we're all just going to laugh at? And maybe that has some like long-term effects, but ultimately it doesn't really add much to the conversation. But I think that like if you're going on the Dr. Phil or Oprah or something, it's basically like Jerry Springer or Maury Povich. You're like, well, I guess I'm just gonna try to get a zinger in so people remember me, and maybe we'll like be able to have like a serious conversation at some other point. Because I don't think that's the thing about legacy
I
media,
remember.
though, is that nobody watches anymore because they do want something authentic. They want people like actually talking about things and not doing these little sound
Hey, like
bites.
us.
What?
Like
Oh,
us.
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. Technically.
Okay, do you remember that one interview with Cassie J and Warren Farrell? And that moment, okay, so Cassie J is a woman who did a documentary, a really nice documentary on men's issues. And then Warren Farrell is like the
Grandfather
Mr. Rogers,
of
the
men's,
Mr. Rogers of men's issues. And they went on because they're sort of friends, and they went on this mega. I don't remember what channel it was.
Dr. Phil. It was Dr.
Dr.
Phil.
Dr. Phil. So it is very relevant. And he realized, you could see the moment that Warren Farrell realized that Dr. Phil was the ringmaster of the clown show. And he's just like, okay, I'm gonna just say as much as I can before he turns my microphone off. You remember that? So he just gives.
Well, they tried to bring in like what they were claiming was an actual misogynist, and they had him sitting on the team with Cassie J and Warren Farrell, and they ended up talking about like, did they end up talking about like incel violence or something? And you're making these people that were trying to talk about something serious answer for something ridiculous. I don't remember exactly, but it was
essentially they put like I was talking about this, they create these clowns, they put them in a serious discussion, and then they make it about the bullshit. They make it about the spectacle. They make it about the zingers, right? Instead of actually about the issues that Cassie and Warren Farrell wanted to talk about. And again, it's like the emotion in the moment. It's like creating a farce. It's the great comical fart that we're all just the carousel of farts. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, let's keep going.
Bro, I remember whenever this shit happened, it was so fucking funny. Oh my god, she'd be in line. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but she'd still be in line. That's a good point. I didn't even think about that. And so anyway, there's a lot of women that get mad about guys not wanting to do anything. But the reason why a lot of guys don't want to do anything and they want to sit home all day and jerk off to anime is because they don't have any other options. That's the reason why. And also, here's the other thing, is that if you're a smart guy, you can get ahead. But most guys aren't smart. That's just the way the math is. And so you got a bunch of guys out there that there's no way, like back in the day, if you were a bit of a dumbass, but you could do the right thing, you could go and get a decent job working at a factory somewhere, and you could make a good amount of money, right? That's obviously the case. But nowadays, you're not able to do that as much anymore. You don't have the opportunity to do that anymore. And because of that, now things are a lot worse. And if you're one of these guys, you can't make any fucking money. You don't have any account. You don't have any self-respect. You don't have people that like you. There's nobody in society that gives a fuck about you. There's no labor jobs. Exactly. No, there's not. And so that's the big issue. That's the reason why guys have these issues. And you can have these girls get mad about it all the time, but a lot of the reasons why guys don't get married and have kids is because they don't have money to do it. They don't have the amount of the resources to do it. That's
and again, the simplest thing, if you want to save the earth, ladies, reduce how much income you expect from your partner, which is going to reduce how much you exploit the earth. Like, we can't afford, like, right now, if every man had the funds to be able to marry the average woman, we couldn't afford it, because it would probably break the earth's carrying capacity. Like, this is the thing. We are at a point where women are demanding so much resources from men just to get married that we would need another 5 Earths to pay the bill. Like, if we were able to fix this issue of pair bonding, right? If we could just wave a magic wand and say, okay, all men are able to provide what women want, we would descend into environmental devastation in order to pay the bill that women are asking. Because they're not just asking it of men, they're asking it of the earth and future generations. Like this is completely unsustainable. And I don't like, men literally cannot give women what they want right now, because if they did, we'd all be dead. Right? That's how insane it is. That's how ridiculous women's expectations are. And your expectations are ridiculous. If it's going to require another 2 Earths to fulfill them, ladies, they're too high. All right.
Yep.
I'm good. I just wanted to say
Well, it's fine. I mean, ultimately, he's saying what I said. You know, most people, we are, or too many people are too fixated on what the people at the top do, and not looking at what the regular person does, and like what how noble a job it is to work it's a perfectly noble job to be in a factory, to do construction, to work on roads, to be a farmer, whatever. But that doesn't seem glamorous. It doesn't seem high status. And women seem to desire something that, raises their status. Like it's like we live in a world of plebs that think they're aristocrats in women. And they're like, oh, I want the aristocratic life. I want like, high-speed internet. I want central air. I want, whatever. Right. And men are just they're just like trying to work with what they have. And it's like Asmongold said, that's why I think this is actually really cool, because he is just a normal guy. He doesn't do this as a job. He doesn't talk about this particular, but he is starting to see that there's a lot of regular men that the reason it's not even that they can't support themselves, because they certainly can, because they wouldn't ask much of themselves, like men could live on very little, but they know that women are asking for a lot more, and children are even more. So like, but the opportunities are not there.
Yeah. So Nova Fan says Professor Oak says feminism caused consumerism. Yes, 100%. Well, actually, feminism might be a emergent property of consumerism, but I think there's a sort of a negative spiral going on there.
If there's a relationship between consumerism and female nature, then
there is.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the female, like, consumerism in the past, women created a lot of the things that they consumed, right? What did Penelope do when she was waiting for Odysseus? It was Penelope, right? She was weaving cloth. She's I think weaving her bridal gown, the cloth of a bridal gown. So I mean, they were creating things, women in the past. So women today are sort of like women without anything practical that they make, which has really screwed them up mentally. But yes, consumerism is like feminism inspires consumerism. And I have an anecdote to sort of explain how. So Jonathan and I have done like a lot. Jonathan's my husband. We've done traveling. And there was this one particular airport that we went through, and it had, I think it was Mexican, and it had even worse than American security. So we had to strip off our shirts, or not our shirts. We had to strip off our jackets. We had to take off our belts. We had to take off our shoes. We had to open up all our carry-on and unpack our carry-on. And they looked through everything. And then they did a pat down and all of it, like the whole 9 yards. And you could see everybody going through this, like just cattle. And you know what? It wasn't Mexico. It was just some place with really high security. And then going through this incredible experience of just losing absolute control and having someone feeling like your life is completely outside of your control. And everybody was going through that. And it feels like you're like cattle, basically. And you're discombobulated and you're confused. And then after that experience, I remember we got funneled into what I can only describe as a consumerist paradise. There are these beautiful goods just piled up in these lovely kind of columns. And, you had chocolates, you had leather purses, you had electronics, and it was all just brilliantly lit. So it's like you walk into this showcase after this experience of losing all of your autonomy, all of your privacy, all of your control over your life. And I could see the people that walked through this with me, I could see them gravitating towards these goods to buy. And the reason why they were doing that was because it reestablished control over their lives. Like that's a big part of consumerism. You take away people's sense of control and then you sell it back to them in the form of some pre-trash that they're probably going to enjoy for 5 minutes. And then, it's going to be lost somewhere or it's going to break. But it gives them in that moment, it makes them feel like they have control over their lives to be able to consume something, be able to buy something. That's what we've done to women. Like in every conceivable circumstance, feminism says what to women? You have no control over your life. It's all men. Men are the ones who control everything. They control your horizontal. They control your vertical. They control your thoughts. They control your actions. They control your decisions. If you had Weetabix in the morning, it was actually patriarchy that made you do that. Every single aspect of your life as a woman is controlled by men. You have no privacy. You have no self. But you can buy stuff. You can buy a lot of stuff. And in the moment of buying stuff, you'll feel like you have control. And that's empowerment, is it? Fascinating, isn't it? All right.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's play some more.
The big issue they don't understand. Responsibility without authority is slavery. Yeah, exactly. Young women want families. I mean,
I've said that for years, right? Like that men are responsible for women, but they have no authority over women. This is what feminism's created in terms of the dynamic. And we've all accepted this. We've accepted this for decades. And so what does it mean? Well, ultimately, if you're completely responsible for something, but you have no authority over it, then you're basically a slave.
Right? I'm glad I don't pay for TV. Yeah, it's really sad, man. It really is. And Gu has no pictures of her husband as well. Yeah. No, and I see this, like there's women that complain about guys that are like losers and neats all the time. But the fact is that the reason why is because society has been designed to be at the disadvantage to being a man. That's the reason why, is that you are disadvantaged being a man in society for structural reasons. There are hiring initiatives, scholarship opportunities, school preferences, internship preferences that are offered for women exclusively and not for men. So how can you blame men for not wanting to play a game that's rigged against them? Straight up.
Yeah, and it's worse than that. Why would men participate in a system that actively degrades their value proposition to the opposite sex? It's one thing, again, to work for a system because, you want to keep the lights on for yourself. You want to keep the sewer for yourself and all of this other stuff. But we not only have men by the balls because of that, we also say, well, we're gonna just grind your self-worth away, right? Grind away the idea of what you offer women as a man. And we're gonna shit all over that. And you're gonna have to participate in it. Ugh. Can we just stop that? All right.
Yeah, straight up. The world's not the 90s or 80s anymore. Yeah, exactly. And no one cares that much for men? Yes. And there's a direct correlation between inflation and birth rates. They have an opposite relationship. Well, I'm not sure. There's many reasons, right? It's one. I'm not saying it's one thing. It's like 10 different things. So yeah, I think if you're attractive, generally, you have a better life. Yeah, no, you're right about that. And that's another thing too, is that it's very easy for a pretty girl to say that guys need to just get off their ass and work hard and they're going to find a boyfriend or a girlfriend because, yeah, of course, this is the case for you because you're an attractive girl. But for a lot of guys, that's not their experience. That's not what happens with them. And so the problem is that a lot of guys don't have the ability to go out and get a girlfriend. They're not going to be able to do that. They don't have the money to do it. They, they go on Tinder and they try to match with 200 girls. They match with one girl and it turns out to be a guy that's trying to scam them. And guess what? They're fucking pissed, man. Yeah, and that's it. And how many of you guys have dealt with this exact same thing?
I don't. Let me just look. I think that was the most of. I mean, he goes into like, the media and masculinity, like the way that men are, because they don't have role models. They're really. I think this is like basically the takeaway. He doesn't really play any more of the clip. We know what Tomi Lahren said anyway. We saw that.
Mm.
I think dating apps. I think men should just not be on dating apps. I think dating apps are a cancer. And I have a really radical take on dating, but I won't share it here. But yeah, I don't think they should be on dating apps, because I think that what the problem is that women treat men on dating apps in the same way they shop for things. They basically just like min-max, and that means that they're trying to get the most benefit with the minimum amount of work and effort. And that's why women on average find the overwhelming majority of men unattractive. And that's not just I know that some people like Hannah Cox and not so erudite and shit have said online that that's like a misnomer. I think even like people like Lauren Southern has said it. But the thing is that it is true that women have such they've essentially convinced themselves that they deserve the absolute best. And I understand where that comes from in terms of their evolution and their instincts, but it's completely like misplaced. Home Math has talked a lot about this at length in a number of videos. And I think that women need to be grounded on earth. And I think that like dating apps and social media have essentially created an illusion of reality. And then on top of that, you're around your peers and all the women around you are saying you're a 10, and you can put on like a pound of makeup and make yourself look like a 6. And of course there's lots of like thirsty dudes and like simps online that'll make you feel like a 10. So you're going to start believing it. So I'm not even blaming women for this. I think this is like a combination of factors. But
well, go ahead and blame women. Like I don't even.
No, I mean I'm not only
sarcastic.
I'm blaming women, but I'm also blaming simps.
No,
and I'm also,
you should blame them more.
Yeah, people call Lizzo a 10. Somebody in the chat just said. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And it's not just other women that are just gassing each other up because they want to, like, a lot of when women gas each other up, it's not because they believe it. It's because like sounding like you're complimenting somebody else makes you look like a better person. So it's still like a self-serving act to be like, no, honey, I think you're beautiful. But I'm not saying this for you. I'm saying this for me. I'm saying this so that other people will look at me and say, wow, what a good friend. That you always have something nice to say. And so even when women compliment each other, they're doing it for themselves, if that makes sense. And yeah, they will lie to each other because it makes them feel good about themselves. And then when women believe the lie that they're being told by other women, then they are setting themselves up for a great fall. And but it's not just that. It's also there are men who have like no standards, maybe, and they could be, because it's the internet, they could be from any country in the world that are just looking for a woman in like your country, like a first world country. And so they'll just flatter you, or maybe they're into that. I don't know. So I think that Lizzo gets called a 10 by the people in her peer group, other women who think she's just fantastic because she's a woman and we got to stand with the sisterhood. But also there's thirsty, simpy dudes that will say it. So like like men, there are some men that have to have some standards as well. Like I saw a guy in the vertical, or in the special chat, the vertical chat earlier. He said, "Hey guys, I'm 6 foot." That's simp behavior, guys. That's simp behavior. You shouldn't have to go in and say, "Hello, ladies, right over here, 6 foot tall man. I'm good enough. Am I good enough? I'm 6 foot. What do you think?" That's pathetic. You don't owe anybody that. Like I'm sorry, but it is. If you are 6 foot, congratulations. But who gives a shit? Do you really want to like tell a girl that you're 6 foot and then have her tell you, "Okay, we'll go out"? Like if that's the criteria that you're meeting, that's no, you're setting yourself up for massive failure. So just like, as much as I blame women, and I'm going to continue to blame women, men, you guys have to have some standards too. Like, come on, because you are helping to feed into this delusion. Like even when Asmon says, I think he was saying Tomi Lahren is pretty. I think she's mid. Sorry, and she's like in her 30s now. So like, it's over. Like the wall has come. Just walk away. It's a big, beautiful wall, and it's coming for you. Like I think that, I think that's the problem, and it's the normal working class man that's going to suffer the most because he's like, men don't gas each other up, and by all accounts, like they probably shouldn't, because it's better that you live in reality than some fantasy constructed by your peer group, so that they can feel better about themselves for gassing you up.
I would say that maybe it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Yeah.
I actually sort of lurk on Homath's forum, and I witnessed some, I would say, like, not very functional behavior from both members of the sex. So he has a forum for women to talk to women about things, and a forum for men to talk to men. So a woman's only and a man's only. And the woman's only, a woman who was about 300 pounds started posting, and all the women were banging her up. She's saying, oh, you have lovely hair and lovely complexion. And the woman was saying, why can't I get a date? And of course, nobody's telling her the obvious, right? Maybe lose some weight. Just to improve your odds. But every single woman's just bigging her up and making her feel like she doesn't, like, not addressing the obvious thing that she probably should change, even for herself, right? Then I went to like the men's forums, and you can see everything that goes on. And in fact, a man actually posted in that thread with that woman, but it got deleted. And I'm pretty sure what happened is he said the obvious. Immediately got deleted. Now go to the men's forum, and there's this guy who posts, he says, I can't get a date, and I'm like living in my mom's basement, and immediately this guy just sort of goes on him and starts saying, well, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. Don't make any excuses. Get off your fat fucking face and our fat fucking ass and make a change, you loser. And I'm like, okay. And I watch, and the guy sort of responds initially and then disappears. And I'm like, I think there should be a balance between those two,
Yeah,
like,
sure.
Let's recognize the obvious, but also maybe help people get to the places that they want to be through some reasonable support. Okay, yeah, these are the problems that you have, but you can overcome them with effort, and we'll help you in those moments where you feel like you're not going to make any progress, and you feel really depressed, and you have some place to talk about that. And but you keep working towards your goals, and you break them down into simpler steps. You take the simpler steps, and you move towards improving your position in reasonable way, not necessarily through massive shaming, but just trying to help people get better. So you try to help people get better, but you don't blast the hell out of them because they're not where they want to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I don't disagree with that. I never claimed it. I do think it's a bit of, I definitely think it's both. Yeah, for sure.
It's a combination, because people need to strive to be better, of course, because what is life but striving to be better? But at the same time, as sometimes people do need, like, yeah, you can do it. A little bit of believe in the me that believes in you, that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. We should be encouraging. Absolutely.
Encouraging. And recognizing the progress that people do make. That's the other thing. It's like people get into this treadmill where they can never step back and say, hey, actually, you know what? I did something pretty impressive. I should take a moment to congratulate myself and live in the feeling of having achieved something. And I shouldn't feel bad to do that. And, this is what I've discovered. If you give people more of the skills to actually recognize the things that they do more of them. And, so it's just something like, it's something that if you found something in the middle of that, I think that would work a lot better for everyone. That's I don't know, is that centrism or just sensibility?
I mean, I don't disagree. So I don't know if you thought that was like a counter argument to my statement. I don't think I was far off from that. But
Okay.
I got a super chat from Derek Workman, and he gave us $5 and said, I kind of want to hear a response to the comment I made before this. So I had to dig up the comment. You know, you could have just copy pasted it into the super chat. But okay, I found it. And he says, why is it that whenever there is any news story about men having problems, where is some women going off about who she wants to stuff her blank with? Oh, whenever
Yeah,
men
because-
have problems, it's women complaining about the fact that they have problems. Is that what you mean?
No, that men aren't attractive enough for them or something. I think
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
well, yeah, women don't offer any encouragement. That's another thing about ultimately the big takeaway from this Tomi Lahren clip is that she doesn't have anything but shame for them.
Yes. And
So-
I have another anecdote from Twitter. Because I go on Twitter and sometimes I put my hair up so I look like a man, I guess now. I used to look like a 12-year-old boy. But anyway, so I would get into these arguments with feminists and they'd think I was a man. And they would shame me. And there was one particular thing that I found hilarious. This woman essentially said, "You're not man enough to save me." I'm like, lady, you're using your own weakness and incompetence to insult me? Like, why wouldn't you save yourself, you empowered individual? And this is the thing, like what they're doing when they direct from away from what men are working with or trying to fix or struggling with, when they direct it away from men's issues back towards women and what women deserve, they're essentially reasserting that identity that men exist to save women. So men can't have problems because how can they save women? Like and it's pathetic. Like, is this the sum total of being a woman? You're just a thing. You're just a rug that constantly needs to be, it's bringing the room together, but constantly needs to be saved from the nihilists. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, sure.
It's a very
So,
weird.
but it's a no. I get the reference. It's a Lebowski reference. I get it, but no. I mean, no. I guess so. Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Save the rug.
Save the. It really brings the room together.
Yeah, it really brings the room together. That's women's function. They really bring the room together, and they need to be saved. And well, and also it's men's function to save women. But I will never forget that exchange. You aren't man enough to save me.
Did they think you were a man? Because I know Hannah and Karen get that too all the time.
Yes, they thought I was a man.
And it's funny. Like they probably just assumed that because you criticize women, you must be a man. Like that's like that. It's like they're showing their bigotry or their attitude right off the bat because they're saying, well, only a man would criticize women, no matter what women do.
Mm-hmm.
Only a man would do that.
I was going to add something to what you said about women bigging each other up. There's another component to it. I think they want to get other women.
We call it gaslighting, Allison.
Gaslighting. Okay.
Gaslighting.
Very cute.
Yes.
Very, very cute. There's another
very
component.
Demure. Very mindful.
There's another component. I think that women, they have this really strained relationship with each other. They want to be with other women, but at the same time as they are extremely suspicious of them. So this gaslighting is a way of getting other women sort of addicted to your like fatuous praise.
Yes.
And the instant that she does something that you don't like, and like a lot of the conflicts between women is just women not respecting each other's autonomy and then blaming men. But the instant that she does something you don't like, you are going to list all of her flaws, all of her physical flaws, and taking away that praise in a moment of vulnerability is going to be so painful. And then to combine taking away that praise, taking away that rug, that you've built this, she's built a bit of her identity and her self-worth on the lies that you've told her. You take that away and then you couple it with it's like a 1-2 punch. And the second punch is everything that you didn't tell her about her flaws all at once. It's a devastating maneuver, and I think it's like almost like a nuclear deterrent for women. It's like we're all going to be friends because we know if we fuck up, or like if anybody upsets the apple cart, they're going to get bombed into the ugly age. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. I'll
All right, I think that's it for this video. I don't think there's much else, but I will say that you know, it does make me happy to see the normie audience like tapping
waking
into
up.
this. Absolutely, yeah, and I think that the Roach King has a lot of reach.
Mm-hmm.
The Roach
The
has
Roach
reach.
King.
Yes, that's what people call him. So apparently he lives in, you know, I
In
wouldn't say
Roach
squalor, but there was a cockroach in one of his streams, I think. But he kind of, the thing is though, he just kind of owns it. Like, yeah, okay, yeah, I have a pest problem, and that's okay because again, you know, this like I grew up in the low income part of the west side of Chicago, and I lived with my family in a roach infested apartment, and it was really bad. And I'm grateful that I don't anymore, but like that was like my whole childhood. I just lived with pests. Like that was just the reality. And I don't think it makes me like a worse person because of it. It's just the conditions. But a lot of people still have this. There's a little bit of a elitism that comes from that kind of judgment. I mean, you could say, well, that means that you live in filth, but like honestly, like my mom was a neat freak. It just could not be helped. It's just the, you know, once the building has roaches, you just have roaches. Like you just got to get the Orkin man, and it wasn't our building. We didn't own it. We rented, you know, a little apartment there. My mom, my dad, and my three brothers, or my two brothers rather.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and but anyway, that's a big digression. I'm just saying, like the understanding of your circumstances and the ownership of that is to me encouraging because it means you're saying, look, you know, yeah, this is my life, and that's okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
anyway.
Okay, so let's get to that second one.
Do you want the Fox thing? This one?
Yeah, let's just get
So,
it done.
okay, we'll play this. Yeah, that's fine. This one is short. And again, I didn't finish this one. I think I may have actually. But he brings on this panel of dudes, and this is all cringe. Like, I'm sorry, but the Fox stuff is cringe because they're clearly just out of touch. And like they don't know what the conversations are. They're still having conversations with you know, on a much older generations of men that are just like not they're not the Zoomers, right? They're not in this space the Zoomers are in.
They're having to use anthropologists to figure out how to appeal to young.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got a something from NobaFan. I forgot to read it. NobaFan21 gives $1 on Rumble. Thank you. And says, I think on Twitter you should remind feminists that men have no instis to get rid of their male privilege or whatever feminists want men to do to be better. Watch them double down. No incentive is what he means to say. No incentive to get rid of their male privilege. Yeah. All right. Anyway.
White men. How do we talk to this strange and breed of American citizen that we've never wanted their vote before, but now we do? Hillary Clinton was doing a rally, and it was like, you know, I'm going to be the president for African Americans and Latino Americans. And she just went down the list, right? And my staffer goes, so she doesn't want my vote. She didn't ask for my vote. And he's a white male. You spent 15 years essentially ignoring that vote. And in fact, not only ignoring it, interest groups going out of their way to marginalize that demographic group. And then you're shocked when that demographic group doesn't think the Democratic Party wants them to be members.
Well, they were appealing mostly to women. And they have actually, let me just find this because I thought this was interesting. They have realized their mistake and they're doing everything they can to change it. On tomorrow's news show, I'm going to be talking about how, and I know this is more political because we're talking about the Democratic Party, but it is like it's a microcosm of a broader conversation around how men are essentially like left out of the conversation, period, with regards to you know, where to move in our society. And they will specify white men, and I would say, yeah, maybe white men most of all, but it's all men at the end of the day, because if you're operating within the progressive stack, women will always be at the top of that. So, but yeah, so it says, like they're planning to spend $20 million on something called the SAM project, which means speaking to American men, I think, to try to help them, because it was men that changed the outcome of the election in 2024. And in addition to that, they have engaged someone named Olivia Juliana as part of their strategy to bring young men to the Democratic Party. And for them, this is the thing that I think is also interesting about this, because this is what the bread tubers do too. It always comes down to not necessarily like, what can we like actually offer to men to like get their vote, but rather how do we manipulate them to support us? Because we're not actually going to give them anything. We're not actually interested in their concerns. We're only interested in their votes. So how do we get them? And this is like the thing that's going to continue to backfire, because the interests of men run counter to the interests of single women, which is the voting bloc they have created. So how are you going to be able to court the men who are, by and large, they want to get married, they want to have families, and that will mean that they're going to be concerned about the role of government in their lives. That will mean that they're concerned about the direction their society goes in. They're going to be concerned about their children's education. They're going to be concerned about their sons and like where they stand. And all of that is counter to the single woman narrative, which is essentially that they should be focused on career and, acquiring resources or using the welfare state, which of course a married man would be concerned with, and a married woman too, because once a woman is in a marriage with a man, then she cares about where her tax dollars are going, because that becomes important. But when she's not, then she doesn't care. She actually wants those resources, right, redirected to her. So this is the problem that the left has now, is that they have alienated men so much. And I think it's because they saw them as they took them for granted. Like, oh, well, they're going to vote for us anyway, because otherwise we're going to call them racist and sexist. And so
we control their identity, basically.
Yeah. So we can just bludgeon them into doing what we say. And what happened was men finally said, no, we're not doing that. And now they're like, oh shit, what do? We have to appeal to them. And all they have is, well, we could pander. That's what we do. We do that with women. It works. We'll pander to the men, but it doesn't work, because men don't care about pandering. They don't want to be gassed up. They want to know, like, what is it that you're going to do that is going to allow them the freedom to pursue whatever it is they're interested in. And essentially, like, and what that comes with, which is usually, a family, which is what I think the overwhelming majority of men want. So that's like a problem. So anyway, he was explaining how that demographic, men, is being alienated.
File this as well under the category of, after years of reporting the sky is red, Chuck Todd drapes himself in gravitas and revelation and credibility to report to us finally that the sky is blue. Thank you. We've known for quite some time how Democrats have alienated young men. Okay, now speaking of young men, my own sons better tune this out. A Wall Street Journal headline got our attention. The new dream job for young men, stay-at-home son. It's a phrase that's taken off since 27-year-old Brendan Leo won $59,000 on Jeopardy. And he has a master's degree in political science, but he's unemployed and lives with his parents. So are stay-at-home sons here to stay? Joining me now is the Ruthless Podcast team. Josh Holmes.
All right, pausing it there. So you notice there was a guy who was so smart, he won Jeopardy. He has a master's degree in political science, and he lives at home with his parents. Don't you think that guy knows something you don't know, Will Kane? Like, if it sounds like he made a completely rational decision based on what I think that was a super high IQ move, in my opinion. He was like, well, I have $59,000. I have a master's degree in political science. I'm going to stay at home with my parents. I don't know. I think that, like, I know that they're going to shame him for that, but I think that there's a Jeopardy winner knows what he's doing. Exactly. Yeah. I wonder if they're, and of course, that's what I mean. Like, these people are so out of touch. They don't know that there's probably like a really good reason for that. And of course, this is one guy in his one circumstance. He won Jeopardy. He won a lot of money. He has a master's degree, probably a pretty smart guy, especially considering the fact that, you know, I would say a degree doesn't mean much, but I think for a man, it probably means something because they don't get any of the beneficial grants and scholarships and the boosting and all of that because the universities are generally not looking for ways to increase the number of male graduates because that doesn't look good, right? They want to increase the number of women graduates. They want to increase the number of graduates of color or immigrant graduates or whatever. So they can say, look at how equitable we are. That's why, like, even though, you know, people will say that the DEI is like going away, it isn't really. It's just being rebranded. So they're just like playing around with the language, and they're messing around with some of the, you know, ways in which it goes about, but they still like, the colleges are not any less woke than they were. So they still have the same goals. They're just trying to figure out new ways to get there. And this is why, like, Zoomer men, as Asmongold laid out, are still struggling because they're still last in line. They're still being treated that way. And I don't know that we can do anything about it except, you know, do something about universities in general. Like, they got to go. And I think there's like new universities coming out that are like online universities. That could be an answer, but yeah, I mean, as it stands, I think that if you understand that these men still have all of this against them, and that they're rolling a boulder uphill to get a degree, and women just, you know, they get all kinds of like grants and loans and stuff, which of course puts the women in debt, which they eventually bring to their actual marriage. Like, yeah, I'm here to marry you now. I know I'm like 29. I've ran through a bunch of dudes, and I'm also 6 figures in debt. But hey, you don't want to be alone, right? But meanwhile, this guy, I think that he's probably seen all of that, and he's like, well, here's what I'm going to do. So, yeah. I mean, but anyway. So I'm going to play more of this. So now we're going to get the reaction from the Ruthless podcast. These guys that wear sunglasses indoors. Not that I'm shaming people who wear sunglasses indoors, but
hey, I
Triply
feel
Smug,
called
John
out.
Ashbrook and Michael Duncan. Take bets, take odds. Which one of these guys lives at home right now? At age. It's Duncan. It's Duncan. I saw the way he bowed his head.
Come on.
Amazing blast.
Unbelievable.
Will, you've started this perfectly. This is exactly our sweet spot. Now, listen, as compelling as arranging flowers and monitoring Amazon deliveries could be to your average person, I think that, you know, most men with even an ounce of testosterone would find this a touch demeaning.
We have to bring back shame in this country, Josh.
We do.
Like, it's crazy to me. Like, you would have to waterboard me.
this is absolutely retarded. I'm sorry. These guys are retards. We have to bring back shame in this country. We do. We just only shame men. Have you been paying attention?
Yeah, unless you're gonna blame women a bit. Nope. You everything just lands back on men, huh? Yeah, let's keep going. I actually have words. I have words that may be offensive, but let's
Dean Domino gave us a super chat for $4.99 and says, a few weeks ago, some critter, I think a possum, fell through his ceiling onto the floor of his house. He's talking about Asmongold, I think. It made me think of an Always Sunny opening. I've never watched that show. All right, thank you for that. I don't want to make sure I didn't miss anything else. No, it doesn't look like it.
Super chows. They're easier for us to find. feedthebadger.com/just
Albatross gave us $5 super chow. For some reason, it didn't show up in my, unless I missed it. And he said, sounds like feminists have done a horseshoe and are now back to being damsels in distress. Well, no, their identity changes depending on what they need.
Yeah, but
1 minute, 1 minute they're, you know, the damsel in distress. The next minute they're Katniss Everdeen fighting against the system. But anyway.
Yeah.
Like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed to get me to admit that I'm a stay-at-home son. Like, what?
Well, I mean, speaking of waterboarding, I mean, I blame the dads, to be honest with you.
Yes.
If I suggested for one moment to my father that I was just going to kind of stay at home and not have a professional career, not row the boat at all, he would have waterboarded me in the front yard.
I'm sorry, Brian. I'm about to put the Republican Party on blast. But continue.
No, it's fine. Go ahead. I mean, like,
no, I want to finish this.
I blame the dads, and I'm like, what dads though?
Yeah, what dads?
Like what dads?
Your bipartisan move to give women welfare basically outcompeted dads in the home. So what dads?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Stay-at-home sons. It might be an improvement. Don't we keep hearing, Smug, of like stay-at-home 30-year-olds, like dudes that haven't moved out by the time this is 20 to 24-year-olds. I'm not as concerned about them as I am as the failure to launch 30-year-olds, which I think that's also a real thing. Like, grow up, get a job, get a wife, build a family.
So I'll give them a little bit of grace. There was a statistic that came out. It was in the Journal. I want to say it was about a month ago that 90% of positions that went to companies in the S&P 500 went to non-white males in this country over the past 5 years. Yep. That was stunning to me. It's stunning. And the reason for that is because we have...
Well, it was non-white and non-male. So it was like women first, like women of color first, then white women, then men of color, then white men. So basically women first.
Had an era of DEI, which was pushed, and it was basically excluding. There's a reason why Democrats are like, why can't we communicate to this group? It's not a communication issue. It's a policy issue. You demonized a group of people. You told them they weren't wanted. And so I see this as somewhat of an outgrowth of that. So I can give a little bit of grace. At the same time, that era is being wiped clean. You have an administration that believes in, for the first time, it's shocking, equal opportunity. Can you believe that? Yeah. Everyone on the same footing, best person wins the job. But I think when you see this administration, you see the policies, it's already gotten the economy going, it's got people excited. I think young men aren't going to have to worry about being stay-at-home sons. They're going to be out there getting it done.
Let's hope that's true. Let's hope it is true, that it's a new playing field, and therefore we don't see stories like this. Hey, it's Will Kane.
That's it.
Okay, so just to clarify, the one guy in the center there, he was the stay-at-home son, or was one of them? Or
no, they were joking about it. I don't think any of them are. It was a joke.
All right. So this is what I have to say, and maybe incredibly offensive. The Republicans aren't fixing this. Like, I'm going to be quite freaking honest. I had a lot of hope for Doge, and he has proposed a whole bunch of cuts to the government bloat, and none of them have passed Congress. None of them. Right? None of them have become put in place. And what I see is a bill, no offense, the big, beautiful bill. How many more trillions of dollars worth of spending? And let me tell you what government spending is. It is stealing from people. The modern monetary theory people say that, a government can't go bankrupt if it just underwrites its own bills. That's what they're doing. They're essentially it's not really printing money, but they're loaning to themselves. They get the first crack at everything in the market, so they get whatever they want at yesterday's prices, and then everybody else has to pay the inflation, and they stagnate the economy. They pick winners and losers among corporations that can't disappear and actually be replaced. They're destroying small business. This entire system is now a fatberg of bloat, and young men are not finding a crack in it. And these guys, many of them, if they're part of the media conglomerate, and probably also these dudes, all they are doing is shaming. And yet we've had a president who said he was dedicated to reducing the budget, to getting rid of fraud and waste. And all of that initiative is once again ground into a halt because of the entrenched inertia of the bureaucracy. There are a whole bunch of people in Washington. They talk about stay-at-home sons. They are fucking squatters. And that's all they are. They're squatters on the taxpayer's dime. Go after them. Why do we continue to point fingers at young men who are struggling in a system that's already ossified? It's already decided the winners and losers, and they are not the winners. They are the losers. Why are we going after young men for this? When it is the failure of these institutions to actually slash this government bloat that is destroying and disabling the economy. Like, it's that failure. And it's okay. I'm not calling out Trump because I can probably see any kind of frustration because it's like nothing. Anything you throw at this gigantic mess, it just doesn't do anything. And these young men are getting frustrated, and they're seeing the downstream effect of this government bloat and this destruction of movement in the economy, right? They're seeing the downstream effects of it. And we are pointing fingers at them and condemning them. They are a symptom of a system that is utterly failing. Like, again, next year, the bureaucrats, what do? They take out another loan to pay themselves, and the taxpayers have to pay interest on that loan. They take another loan to pay their businesses as consultancies or whatever else to get more money in, and the taxpayers have to pay the interest on that loan. I have a lot of sympathy. It's not just a sympathy for men looking at the dating sphere and saying, what's in it for me? Looking at society and saying, why should I invest in a society that's destroying any public perception, like destroying my value proposition for women, for the opposite sex? Why should I invest in an economic system that is top down, that is command at this point? Right? Why should I invest in that? Why should I invest in a system where small businesses are dying at an unprecedented rate? And everything has become about how close you can get to the government teat, to a vein. Actually, I'm not even going to call it a government vein. How close you can get to a vein on the taxpayers. This whole system is just, I'm actually really fucking frustrated about what happened with Doge. I apologize. Like, it's just, it really pisses me off. And again, I'm not necessarily saying that Trump didn't want to fix this. I'm saying it seems like it's fucking unfixable. And I'm not saying Canada is any better. In fact, Canada's worse. We're like the corpse in another stage of decomposition. Okay. I'm sorry.
For what?
I don't know. I thought that, it feels like these smug Republicans yapping about young men's failure to launch as if it wasn't their failure to control out of control government spending and oversight. If it wasn't their failure to cut the bloat. Ugh. And also their failure to just keep their daughters in some kind of order. Like, all right, I'm good.
That's all right. I mean,
I'm angry and I can't. Taking all I can stands and I can't stands no more. Oh man.
Well, that's basically the end of both of those videos. So.
No, not Chad 404. It's very fixable. Trump and Doge never planned to fix it. Well, they could have done nothing.
I don't believe you. No, I don't believe you. I know that there are people who just want to poo-poo everything that Trump tries to do. But we knew that he was up against the swamp anyway. So no, I don't buy it. I mean, just because someone is not making progress at the pace that you think they should, doesn't mean they never intended to try to fix it. So
yeah. I mean,
I can criticize people, but like, I'm not gonna just buy wholesale into this whole like it was not supposed to work.
Well,
I'm sorry, but you can't. You're just a random dude on the internet. You don't know shit.
We can't judge by intent, and the truth is, if he never intended to do it, he could have not done it at all. Then he wouldn't have even been judged by the metric of it. Yeah. Like, no, it wouldn't have even been put on the table as something to consider. I have my own criticisms of Trump. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around what the hell the tariffs are for. But it's just, you can't, you're starting to chase intentions, and that's a rabbit hole that you can go down forever. Let's just assume he did intend this. And unfortunately, the swamp, it consumes all efforts into itself. All right.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Okay. But do we want to go to Tim Pool or just call it a day?
Can we do this another day? Because we got like shows to do this week. So
Sure.
okay.
I think we gave you guys a good run here.
Mm-hmm.
And you got some angry Allison. I don't know if Brian got angry at any point. He seemed pretty calm today.
Well, I watched these in advance, so I knew what I was going to say.
All right. So, okay. Once again, if you'd like to support the show and send us a message, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Like when you send it there, it stays in a specific place. Unlike these super chats that sometimes you need to excavate them out of wherever they go. So please consider going to feedthebadger.com/justthetip. I'll just double check to make sure there's nothing. Oh, yep. Albatross sent one, but other than that, I want to thank everybody. We did have a successful fundraiser. We did fund our last month. I'll put another one on shortly, but thank you. And very much appreciated all your help. And also a little bit of a positive announcement. Justin Trottier from the Canadian Center for Men and Families is going to be awarded the King Charles III Award for his work with men and boys. Now, I'm not really thrilled about the name of the award, but I'm glad that he's getting recognition. And yeah, that's really good.
That's big too. That's big.
Yes. Senator Brazeau praised his wide-reaching impact, stating the mental well-being of Canadian boys and men has gone ignored for far too long. Justin Trottier's remarkable leadership in this area inspires us all to up our game in support of the men and boys in our lives. So that's a great sentiment. I hope eventually we'll start to consider actually opposing the ubiquitous narratives that are targeting men and boys as being oppressors, as being unfairly privileged and all of that jazz. We'll see. I mean, it's a great thing to see that Justin's work is being acknowledged because he's really fought hard for men and boys. All right. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Brian.
All right. Well, if you guys like this video, please hit like. If you disliked it, you can hit dislike. It helps us out either way, and I appreciate it. Please leave us a comment and hit the bell for notifications so you know when our streams go live. And finally, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of the Maintaining Frame, and we will see you guys in the next one. Talk to you later.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.